Hello everyone. This is the 10th part of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Chapter 31, An Unexpected Meeting, final part. General point of view, 2 days ago. The reporter looked professional despite the destruction showing in the background. He looked at the cameraman and straightened out his tie to prepare himself to go live. And we're on in 3, 2, 1. The signal was given and the reporter's face turned grim. His voice was smooth and even, delivering concise and precise sentences in a tone that forced you to listen intently. The mass destruction caused by the Terror Twins continues. Earlier today, the two twins found themselves in an altercation with the Flash after attempting to rob priceless gems. They managed to escape, but the Scarlet Speedster was able to retrieve the stolen gems. A picture showing two blonde twins, a girl and a boy, appeared on the screen next to the image of the reporter. Lex Luthor placed the glass of wine back onto the table while humming in interest. His gaze stared at the two twins in thought before a small smile appeared on his face. Brutes whose powers are predominantly super strength with a below-average intelligence level. No other outstanding qualities. Their personalities make them out to be brash and metas who mostly rely on their strength for everything. They are perfect to test him. He sipped his wine before abruptly getting up from his seat. He walked forward slowly towards the balcony of his penthouse and stopped, looking out over the city. A flash of red and blue cut through the air a ways off into the distance. Superman. Lex had only spotted him out of luck. Luthor sneered at the retreating figure of the Man of Steel. Soon, you will reveal to the world what you really are. The folly of them treating you like a god shall be your ultimate undoing. And when that happens, when you get tired of hiding behind false morals, that will be the time that humanity no longer has a need for you. When that time comes, the gloves are off, Superman. Mark my words. Luthor retreated back into his penthouse. There was a young Caucasian woman dressed in a formal suit standing next to his table. A small smile appeared back on Lex's face. My compliments to the chef, Mercy, but I believe that's enough shrimp for the night. He stretched out his arms to the sides and Mercy dutifully dressed him in his black tuxedo jacket. Lex straightened out his suit and buttoned up the jacket. Right now, we have somewhere else to be. Aiden's point of view. Okay. It's official. I'm bad at the interrogation thing. No matter what I did, Galil refused to break and give me the information I wanted. I had already wasted too much time here. I wanted to be gone before anonymously giving a tip to the supernatural experts on the shit that had been going on here. I looked into the eyes of the demon and saw spite. I also felt dirty. His face was bruised. Teeth loose and nose broken. It was as if something primal had been born inside me and I couldn't stop myself from messing him up. I looked at the blood in my knuckles and swallowed the fear that something had changed within me. I've always known that my hands wouldn't be clean. Especially given what I intended to do. To truly bring change to this world, it had to reach the point where superheroes were no longer needed, and to reach that point, I had to make sure that supervillains were stopped. The ones who could change would be redeemed and the ones who couldn't would die. It was the mission I had given myself due to the knowledge I had. The knowledge that ensured I knew a person better than even themselves due to studying their character and even alternate selves back in my old world. It sounds dumb and misguided. What made me think I had the power to impose my opinion onto others? To be truly honest, I wanted nothing more than to hole myself up in my uncle's studio and make music like before. Not having to stress about things like saving the world or crap like that. But I couldn't. The path I planned to walk would no doubt create enemies for me, but I was ready for that. Which is why I couldn't falter. Not now or ever. My hand rose up while I stared at the groaning mess of the demon before me. More of his human skin had slouched off, revealing black scales across his body. A sheath of twisting wind appeared, covering my hand. I didn't look away. Galil's eyes widened and he scrambled to get up, but I had used chi blocking on all of his limbs, so he floundered in place. Damn you, human. He bit out, The words were barely recognizable, however. I won't pretend to be the good guy. Taking a life, whether that person deserves it or not, is something that taints you. My jaw clenched. But to ensure more people are not hurt, that is a sacrifice I am willing to make. Goodbye, Galil. My hand came down onto his chest and speared through his torso. Blackened blood burst out of his mouth and landed on my mask and clothes. They smoked as they melted from the acid-like blood. I used my other hand to remove the mask. The wind attack sliced apart his internal organs from within, leaving a bloody mess on the ground. Galil's eyes showed fear as he tried to mutter something. His blood flowed onto the carpet floor and neatly arranged itself into a pentagram. I quickly jumped backwards just as a blast of hellfire burst out of the pentagram below Galil's body. No. Damn it. A sudden voice cut through the air, followed by a knife aimed towards my head. I ducked the attack, remotely registering the dull thunk of the projectile as it dug itself onto the wooden closet behind me. A woman walked calmly inside while twirling a dagger on her right hand. She was beautiful. She was also eerily familiar. You stole my kill. You shouldn't have done that. I'm not the sharing type. Fuck. That voice, the leather, the danger quality, sinfully sensual body, the daggers, L.A. in Galil's demonic presence. I'm talking to Maze. My eyes widened. And if I'm talking to Maze, that means Lucifer is also not far behind. Shit. I cannot deal with this crap. Not now. Why the fuck is she even here? This is Young Justice. Not the Arrowverse. Cat got your tongue? No worries, I like the silent type. They always make the most beautiful sound when I cut them up. She stepped up and kicked a small stool towards me. The furniture sailed through the air and separated into two parts from a hasty swipe of my hand. Unfortunately, I lost sight of Maze. I used my new sub-skill to sense fluctuations in the air and rolled away from the dagger coming down at me from the top. How had she gotten up to the ceiling so fast? The Maze I know is not this strong. Her punch slammed onto my guard and I was thrown back onto the wall of Galil's office. Cracks appeared on it along with an imprint of my body. I evaded another dagger aimed at my heart by suddenly doing a split. She jumped forward, but I performed a windmill that transitioned into a back spin, hitting her with a blast of wind and throwing her away. The blast pushed away the table and made the papers on top of it fly. Maze grunted once she landed, looking surprised and ready to jump into the fight. Wait. This is all a misunderstanding. I'm not with him. I told her with my hands raised up. I didn't want to start a fight I couldn't finish, which was especially true for this one. She cocked her head to the side. So you do talk? I chuckled nervously, looking out for him. When I have something to say. Maze stood up from her slightly crouched position and started walking around me. What was that attack? Are you one of these superhumans? My gaze never left hers and my senses were on high alert. Something like that. What about you? You don't look like you're from here. She smirked. Something like that. There was a brief silence, then she cocked her chin towards Galil's remains. Why did you kill him? And how can you remain so calm about it? The first kill is always the hardest. For anyone. I started subtly moving towards the small table where the goblet had been placed, while forcing myself to act calm. Luckily, I had already transferred the meta trigger inside to a whiskey bottle. Her words struck a chord inside me. She was right. I was eerily calm for someone who had just taken another life. No, not calm, composed. My hands were slightly shaking, which made me realize that it was composure. I had already made up my mind. This was just a result of my strong conviction. But her words made me curious. How did you know that this is my first time killing someone? Instead of Maze answering, a deep, silky, smooth voice did. It's a trait exclusive to the best of the Lilims. The ability to sense sins. Before Maze, your true self is laid bare. Oh no. I looked towards the source of the voice and marveled in wonder. He was distractingly handsome. I'm a completely straight guy if my sexuality has ever come into question, but, wow. This guy makes me feel as if I'm staring at the combination of every woman's wet dream. He was sinfully, badly, and evilly attractive. My heart hammered in fear. I hadn't felt his presence. Even through my senses, particularly the disturbance in the air, I still hadn't sensed him. What? The actual fact? I backed away warily. I needed to get out of there. I see you took your time, Maze commented while twirling a curved dagger. I had to. It would be remiss of me to not tour my new premises now, wouldn't it? I have even thought of an apt name. He spread out his hands. Every action he did registered as glorious to my mortal mind. What do you think of Lux? He finished with a flourish. Lux? Maze hummed, a finger on her chin. I like it. Plus the irony is just like you. Yes. It's quite fitting. Lucifer looked around and frowned at the state of the room before zeroing in on Galil's remains. Maze, why is there a pentagram on the floor? I thought we talked about this. No shenanigans before we settle down. He snapped his finger and it was like time reversed. The disarrayed room, smashed tables and glasses, cracks on the wall, everything was fixed, and when he was done, the Lightbringer, first of the fallen, turned his attention back to me. Now what should we do with you, I wonder? Chapter 32, A Deal with the Actual Devil. Aiden's point of view. A thin trail of sweat fell down my back. My whole body was on high alert. I felt a pressure unlike anything else weigh down on my very core. Our eye contact ended when I was forced to lower my eyes from his own. Interesting, the handsome man said, studying me curiously. My back was to the balcony. I could make a run for it. Maybe even with the meta trigger. It was close to me after all. I could distract them with a full-powered wind blast. Nothing held back, maybe. You're not normal, are you? A voice said from my back. My eyes blinked and I realized he was behind me. I know it's exhausting to keep on saying this, but I hadn't felt even the slightest bit of disturbance in the air. My shoulders eased up and the tension left me. There was no need to panic anymore. I understood now. This wasn't an existence I could take on. Maze? I was confident in beating her. Her whole style relied on misdirection and attacking from the shadows. Lucifer? He was immortal and omnipotent in the comics, second only to the Presence and his light. Word for word. This wasn't the comics. Instead, it was a mishmash of events from the Camus, DC animated universe, and now the Arrowverse. To that effect, I couldn't count on anything. I couldn't count on him being a pretty chill guy or not having the crazy power level of his counterpart. I couldn't fight him and find out just how huge the disparity was. Which left talking. The name is Aden. Who are you? I inquired. Lucifer went to a red posh couch placed along the walls of Galil's office and sat on it. He closed his legs and leaned back, a glass of wine appearing on his hand, magically. Yeah, not fighting was the right move. I suppose I haven't introduced myself. How rude. I'm the devil, first of the fallen, the deceiver whom you use an excuse to explain away your sinful actions. 'Tis I, the Lucifer Morningstar himself. Gaze into my eyes and be tempted, yada yada yada. He finished with a roll of his eyes. Maze snorted and started chuckling. My eyebrows rose up. Okay. Lucifer pointed at the laughing woman. That's Maze. She's basically like my caretaker or housekeeper. Fuck you. Maze shot back smoothly. Anyway, now that we have those pesky intros over and done with, I'm curious about something. What are you? His eyes shone with a red glow and I found myself compelled to answer. However, My mouth refused to open and my whole body froze up. My thoughts grew muddled and my chest tight. Something was wrong. I heard Maze's voice from far away but couldn't muster the concentration needed to understand her words. I completely blacked out. An undefined time later, I woke up with a start, breathing heavily while trying to calm down my wildly beating heart. My fingers dug into the material of the couch Lucifer had been seating on before as I looked around. "Well, that's interesting," Lucifer said. He had pulled up the same seat Galil had used when I came in and was watching me with a curiosity that sent me on edge. Maze, on the other hand, had a weird expression on her face. She was trying to hide it, but I recognized a little bit of fear as she stared at me. "What happened?" I asked, running a hand over my face. Blacking out like that had never happened to me before. Not since the whole Penguin Mob vs. Batman and Robin thing I had stumbled in the first time. "Nothing much. You just blacked out while we were having our conversation." "Yeah, I got that. I'm just wondering what caused it. Perhaps you have something to do with that?" I asked, pointedly. Lucifer had the ability to find out anyone's deepest desires in the show. It wasn't a stretch to think that he might have used that ability on me. "I have no idea what you're talking about." A smug smile made its way onto his lips. "Maze, can we get our friend here a glass of water?" Maze looked at him in displeasure. "No, I'm good. The only thing I wanted to do was to leave. Skedaddle. Disappear and hope I never came across the devil and his, whatever Maze was to him." "Oh, then perhaps you prefer something else with a little bit of kick." Saying that, the whiskey bottle containing the meta trigger appeared in his hands. I tightened my palms and forced my face to go neutral. "I don't know what you mean." "Really? You mortals are all the same. I'll say this in case you still don't understand who you're standing, or rather laying before. I'm the bloody devil. You can't cheat death, the truth, and lastly me." His words had a finality that I knew couldn't be refuted. He opened the stopper on top of the glass bottle and took a whiff of the contents inside. His nose scrunched up in distaste. "I can feel your desire for this. The question that remains is, do you know what it is?" He rolled his eyes when I refused to answer. "Of course you do." My jaw clenched at the turn in situation. Galil was dead, which wasn't a bad thing, but the problem is I couldn't reap the benefits with Lucifer here. God, my luck. I swung my feet back to the floor and sat up straighter on the couch. "What do you want?" The devilish smile on his face was predatory. "A proposal of sorts. See, I've realized something. Whatever shitshow that Galil had going on here is partly my fault. And Galil is not the only denizen of hell running around in the mortal world. So I need a cleanup guy. And that's where you come in." A dumbfounded look appeared on my face. "What?" Lucifer clapped his palms together and got up. "Good. We're in agreement then." "Wait, what?" I quickly got up to counter his words, but he beat me to it. "And as a gesture of goodwill, you can take the essence and a small portion of whatever you find in the safe." His words ground me to a halt. He had me. To be honest, if I said no to the deal, I would not only lose everything I had come here for and go back with nothing, but I was also risking offending the devil. You know, that guy with power just below the presence? The guy who can destroy me with a mere thought. Yeah. I'm not too keen on that. On the flip side, if I did accept his deal, then it would entail interacting with the devil and his. Seriously, what's Maze's role in all this? Friend some more. Not to mention, being his cleanup guy meant fighting demons and many more supernatural creatures. Either way I see this, there's no right or wrong choice, just the choice I could live with. And for now that was choice number 2, working for him. My desire to bring about change allowed nothing less than a strong conviction to do whatever I can to achieve what I needed. I looked straight into the eyes of sinful beauty personified and made a deal with the devil. Fine. General point of view. The boy had just left. Maze had seen from his face that he couldn't have been any more than 18, which was the age humans generally reached maturity. To Maze, however, even an 80-year-old man was like a flower yet to bloom. Too young to understand life in its full scope, yet going on about it as if they did. She often wondered how a species so short-lived had even more passion and love for life than her sisters and brothers. Then again, the very nature of their short mortality demanded a semblance of fulfillment. She stopped herself. That train of thought was irrelevant because the boy, Aiden, was not a normal human at all. Not after what they had seen when the boy had blacked out. She could still remember the splendor of glowing white eyes and a presence that was in no way weaker than Lucifer's. Maze had been terrified. And she didn't get terrified. Not really. She has seen everything and anything this world had to offer. The best and worst of humanity, but this was something else entirely. Lucifer had at that moment gone still with a serious look on his face. He never broke eye contact with Aiden or whatever the thing possessing him had been. For 2 minutes none of them talked, but from the way they watched each other, Maze knew they must have been communicating telepathically. What was it? She asked Lucifer, breaking the silence that had permeated the room upon Aiden's departure. Lucifer had gone silent, lost in contemplation when Aiden crossed the door behind him. Maze's nervousness increased at his continued silence. Lucifer. What are you not telling me? The boy, he's more special than we thought. This vacation is turning out to be very interesting. He finally commented. His voice soft and gentle. A quality that had always managed to put her at ease, but today, it only made Maze dread his next words because Lucifer was far from done. His tone took on a harder note. It called itself the Avatar spirit. No real sentience, just a mass of ethereal energy running on a complex equation to simulate consciousness. A consciousness with only one role: protect the boy and destroy whatever threatens his life. Lucifer went silent. And that's not even the most intriguing part. 1. It was able to guard his mind from my mental probe, and 2. It's not from around here. The Avatar spirit is a being from outside Daddy's jurisdiction. And that means... Maze widened her eyes. Demiurgic power has no influence on him because he is not marked as part of God's creation. You and Michael cannot undo his existence. Maze sat down with a look of shock on his face. Lucifer, how? How did that thing spear through the multiversal cluster walls and into our reality? Another glass of wine appeared on Lucifer's hand. He watched the swishing liquid inside the glass and answered. I don't know. Chapter 33, The Disappearance of Dr. Fate. Aiden's point of view. I got back late. My mind was occupied by the conversation I had just had with the devil and the new developments waiting for me in the horizon. I sighed as I removed my clothes and stepped into the shower. Galil's office coupled with the disgusting underground fighting ring had left me feeling filthy and unclean. I scrubbed my body until I was satisfied and then stepped out. My eyes ran over the bundle of items I had hidden inside my hoodie and walked over after drying my hair. I settled down on my bed and separated the items into 4 different piles. First, there was jewelry that looked very expensive. Second, a stack of bills that added up to $26,000. Then the meta trigger contained in a whiskey bottle, and lastly, a client list. The list was of a few high-profile people like politicians that Galil had bribed, blackmailed, or been in business with. The commissioner of the L.P.D was also on his payroll, which is how he'd gone so long without being found out. For a demon, Galil kept a well-detailed list of not only his assets but his contacts as well. Which is how I came upon the most interesting name on the list for me. There wasn't much information about it, and it was filed under Special Consultant. That name was Noah Cutler, or otherwise known to all DC fans as the Calculator. The name sent alarm bells ringing inside my head. Was this the same Batman villain who had a genius intellect and was an informer for supervillains? The fact that Lucifer existed in this world showed that there was more I still didn't know. More wrenches to derail my plans if I half-assed this. Fortunately, The good side to all this was that if the calculator actually did exist, then it meant most of my problems about finding some interesting people I had in mind were now non-existent. I could just hire him for that. I filed that away and neatly arranged all the folders into one bundle. I could anonymously give this to the League and watch as they dismantled Galil's operations and took down all the corrupt officials of the government, or I could save this for a rainy day. A sort of leverage for when I wanted things to truly go my way. The only problem with that was, I would compromise my own ideals by letting these people continue to walk free after the things they'd been involved in. Tax evasion, fraud, abduction, torture, rape, murder. Let's just say that Galil knew how to keep an interesting group. I chuckled. This would probably be the make or break moment of a hero if this was a comic book. Had I decided to selfishly keep the docket of information, would have spiraled down into more and more selfish and greedy situations until finally I fell and became a supervillain. Or something like that. Fortunately, the real world is much more complex. One mistake or oversight doesn't spell out the direction your life is going to take. That was a narrow-minded perspective on what life truly is. The capacity for good or bad is equal in all of us. Some are just too jaded and selfish to listen to their inner selves. I packed everything up and placed it into a bag I'd bought when I had gone for clothes shopping with Connor a while back. Then I put the bag under my bed. Speaking of which, I'd need to find a secure place to stash my things. The stack of bills were also inside that same bag, which left only the expensive jewelry and the Metatrigger essence on the table next to my guitar. The jewelry went into a sachet that I kept separate from the funds. I was going to see if I could exchange the jewelry for some cash and then hire someone, probably the calculator, to open up an untraceable bank account for my activities. The jewelry could be safely exchanged the next time I went to Metropolis. The economy and overall better living standard of the city of tomorrow would ensure less suspicion than Happy Harbor, which was so close to Mount Justice. I knew there was probably no chance that Batman would find out about the jewelry, but taking extra precautions never hurt anyone. Lastly, I stared at the Metatrigger in the whiskey bottle. Lucifer hadn't looked particularly thrilled to give it to me. It hadn't been obvious and would probably be arrogance to say I understood him, but from his tone and the cold eyes, I knew that the essence in my possession was not a popular item to the Lord of Hell. I wonder what would happen if I actually used it. What sort of power would I get? Would it add to my current mastery in the bending styles or have a different effect on my body? Based on the fact that it was essence refined from metahumans, then it would mean that I could develop a metagene. I contemplated on using it at that moment. Just opening the stopper and drinking it down. What stopped me was a thought. If Galil could use it to create metas in the form of Dumb and Dumber, and also the one who had built those metagene scanning devices, couldn't I also do the same? But by drinking the Metatrigger right now, I would lose that option. It wasn't a secret that I was going to branch out on my own in the future. And instead of recruiting other superheroes to join my cause, what if I created my own? Decision made, I placed the Metatrigger right next to the last vial of cobra venom I had kept from the bust at the Santa Prisca factory. I really needed a place I could hide these things. It would be a disappointment if Robin just happened to snoop around and come across the cobra venom. All my efforts in building trust with the team would all be for naught. The next morning I woke up early and proceeded to the training room as usual. My brief altercation with Maze, and by extension Lucifer, had surprisingly shed some light on what I needed to work on. My fighting style was heavily reliant on chi blocking or bending, which was a solid combination both for crowd control, one-on-one battles, and even when I'm outnumbered. In other words, I had some good offensive options. Therein lies the problem. It wasn't a matter of being bad at defense, but instead not having a way to escape a battle I couldn't win. If Lucifer had been at all serious about harming me, I doubt I could have defeated him, let alone flee. That meant before I got to the level I was confident I could take on Darkseid himself and win, I had to approach every fight as if I was at a disadvantage and have a strategy for escaping in case things went sideways. So I stayed the entire morning, refining my sonic scream to a sufficiently dangerous level. The air rippled and pushed the wave of ocean water away. I was on the beach, having decided that practicing sonic scream inside the cave was a bad idea. For several reasons, actually, not just because I could risk a cave-in if I wasn't careful, but also because Connor's ears were very sensitive. I've always prided myself in being good at empathizing, so here I am, breathing in the cold air and fighting with the ocean. An hour in and I started making it into a game. I tried shaping my sonic blasts narrower for a harder concussive effect and then upping the intensity and spreading out the attack evenly from the point of contact. A shower of ocean water would rise up at that moment and fall down in a spectacle that caused a rainbow once the sun's first rays hit it. It was beautiful. From there I begun trying to emit sonic attacks from the rest of my body, particularly my hands. That didn't work though, so I changed tactics and started meditating to get a sense of the vibrations propagating in the air whenever an object passed through it. My auditory awareness spread out fully. I could hear the gentle push and pull of the waves as they hit the beach, birds chirping almost 200 meters away, the slight hum of the sand as sunlight shone on the grains and heated them up, and a whooshing sound approaching me. I opened my eyes just as Red Tornado touched down on the ground before me. "Good morning, Tornado." "Good morning to you too, Maelstrom." His robotic voice was as blunt as ever. I cracked my neck and rose up while stretching. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" I finally asked, killing the brief silence that had befallen us. "I have reviewed your mission accomplishments. Coupled with your strict discipline in training and learning more about being a hero, I believe you can help me." A confused expression appeared on my face. "What do you mean? Are you saying you need my help in a mission or something?" "Precisely. I need you to help me find someone. An old friend of mine." Realization dawned on me. He was talking about Kent, the previous host of Nabu, a Lord of Order. His hero name was Dr. Fate. I remember this event happening in the animation. The mission went from a simple missing person investigation to a fight with Clarion the Witch Boy, a Lord of Chaos. And Red Tornado was personally requesting for my help instead of presenting the mission to the team. Something isn't right here. Okay. I'm listening. His name is Kent. And he's been missing for close to 2 weeks now. Not to sound rude, Tornado, but why ask me? The League would have a better chance at finding him than I ever could. Red Tornado was silent for a while before saying something that completely shocked me. "Kent is mostly known by his other self, the hero Dr. Fate. I approached you because the helmet of Fate shares almost the same flavor of energy as yours. The origin of your powers seem to be similar to that of a Lord of Order." This marks the end of Part 10 of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.